Forget everything you thought you knew about medieval monks. Seriously. Picture this, a silent, stone-walled scriptorium, a devout scribe hunched over a priceless manuscript, meticulously copying sacred texts. It seems so solemn, so rigid, right? Well, it turns out those pious scribes were far more mischievous and human than their portraits suggest. We're about to expose the secret lives embedded in the margins of these ancient books, the hidden messages, the personal frustrations, and the subtle acts of rebellion that history almost forgot. When we look at a medieval manuscript, our eyes are naturally drawn to the beautiful, elaborate calligraphy in the center of the page. This was the main event, the sacred or scholarly text that was the entire reason for the book's existence. But the real story, the human story, is often happening just a few inches away, in the margins. Look closer at these seemingly random doodles. A tiny knight battling a giant snail, a rabbit brandishing a sword, a monkey playing the bagpipes. You might dismiss them as simple decoration. But what if they weren't just random scribbles? What if these were intentional messages, a secret language hidden in plain sight? This is where it gets fascinating. The margins became a space for scribes to vent, to joke, and to leave a piece of themselves behind. Think of it as their personal social media feed, centuries before the internet. We have actual, concrete examples of them complaining. One scribe wrote, "Oh, my hand is so tired." Another scrawled, "The ink is bad, the parchment is hairy, and the light is dim." My personal favorite is one who noted, "Thank God it will soon be dark," clearly counting down the minutes until he could stop working. They weren't just complaining about the physical labor either. They griped about their bosses, the cold, drafty rooms, and even the patrons who commissioned the books. It's an incredibly relatable glimpse into the daily grind of a medieval worker. But it wasn't all complaints. These margins are also filled with humor. We find visual puns, where an illustration playfully represents a word or phrase. There are caricatures, silly faces, and even outright mockery of authority figures, cleverly disguised as innocent doodles. A bishop might be drawn as a fox, a symbol of cunning and deceit. These weren't solemn, robotic copyists. They were clever, witty individuals who found ways to express themselves within a highly restrictive system. This completely shatters the stereotype of the eternally pious monk. Now let's shift our focus from the scribbled notes to the elaborate illustrations themselves, the illuminations. These beautiful, colorful paintings weren't just decoration. They often contained their own subtle narratives and hidden commentaries. Artists and scribes would use a kind of visual code. A recurring animal, for instance, wasn't just there to look pretty. A lion might symbolize Christ, while a dragon could represent Satan. But then you have the weird stuff, like the killer rabbits. Yes, you heard me right. All over medieval manuscripts, you can find illustrations of sweet little bunnies turning the tables on their human hunters, wielding axes and bows. Scholars have debated the meaning for years. Is it a metaphor for the oppressed rising up against their oppressors? A simple joke about the reversal of the natural order, or something else entirely? The gestures of figures in these illuminations are also key. A pointed finger, a specific hand signal. These could carry symbolic weight that a medieval viewer would have instantly understood, but which we now have to decode. Sometimes, scribes would even slip in anachronisms, objects or styles that didn't belong in the historical or biblical scene being depicted. A Roman soldier might be shown wearing 13th century armor. This wasn't necessarily a mistake. It could be a deliberate choice to make the ancient story feel more immediate and relevant to the contemporary audience. Or a subtle way for the artist to sign their work by including a personal, recognizable detail. So, why did they do it? What was the real motivation behind all these hidden messages, jokes, and commentaries? Was it pure boredom? A way to pass the long, monotonous hours of copying text line by line? That was certainly part of it, but it was also a form of rebellion. In a world where individual expression was often suppressed, especially within the strict hierarchy of a monastery or a noble court, the margins were a free zone. It was a space where a scribe could leave their personal mark, assert their identity, and say, "I was here. I had thoughts, I had feelings, I had a sense of humor." Of course, this wasn't without risk. If a patron or an abbot discovered a particularly subversive doodle, the consequences could be severe. Yet, they did it anyway. This tells us so much about human nature and the irrepressible urge to connect and communicate. These individual acts of defiance give us a richer, more nuanced understanding of medieval culture. It wasn't just about kings, queens, and grand battles. It was also about the everyday people, their private jokes, their frustrations, and their clever ways of navigating a complex world. Ultimately, deciphering these hidden histories completely changes how we see the past. It reminds us that historical documents are not just static records of facts. They are living objects created by real people. The skills we use to read between the lines of a medieval manuscript are the same skills we need to navigate our own world. We use them to understand subtext in a conversation, to spot bias in a news article, or to appreciate the subtle layers in a film or a piece of art. History is rarely as straightforward as it seems. It's messy, it's human, and the best stories are often hidden in the margins. So the next time you see an old book or a piece of ancient art, don't just look at the main subject, look at the edges. Look for the doodles, the odd details, the hidden clues. You might just discover a secret conversation reaching out across the centuries, waiting for you to join in. Thanks for watching. If you found this as fascinating as I do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.